Hello.
Hi, I'm Sandra Mejia, and today I'll be developing this butterfly pattern in response to this month's creative brief. If you want to receive monthly creative briefs and you want to download the Procreate brushes that I use here and get my class on royalties pricing and other freebies, join the Happy Designers Backpack. I'm going to leave the link in the description below. So the brief is that the client wants a pattern butterfly in a 12 by 12 inch square, and they want me to use this color palette but not make it too pink. The pattern has to be bi-directional, so it means that it can be used in any direction. And they're going to use it for fabrics. They wanted it a painterly style, sort of soft, watercolor-like style, and they want some details, but not excessively detailed. They also want this pattern in CMYK. So I'm going to create it in Procreate, and I'm going to start in an RGB file, 12 by 12 inch, and then I'm going to show you how I change it to CMYK in Photoshop. This is the process that I follow working for my clients. So I want to invite you to my studio and sit here beside me, and I'm going to be telling you what I'm thinking about as I'm designing. It's not going to be a step-by-step video where I show you exactly all the technicalities of making a pattern. This will be more of a walkthrough of my process and my thoughts behind that process. So let's go. So I'm going to create every pattern at a 12 by 12 at 300 ppi. And I know I want a main print with butterflies, and that's going to be my hero print. So I'm going to create like maybe 5 different types of butterflies. I like always creating an uneven number of elements. I think that gives more visually appealing effects. So I'm just going to start sketching my butterflies. Okay, so I made these sketches of butterflies, and if you see, I'm only making half of them because I'm going to duplicate the wings when I take this into Photoshop. So I'm not worried about making the whole butterfly right now. And some of them I can use like this, where they look like they're sitting and not flying with their wings spread. This saves me some time, so I don't have to be painting both of the sides of the butterflies. And I have also created some foliage elements here. When I am making my elements, I'm making them sort of curved because the butterflies have curved areas. So I'm thinking of how they're going to fit in with the butterflies, but I'm not super worried about that right now. I just don't want to make them all static like this, because then having butterflies that are very flowy, it's going to be hard to put them into the spaces in between the butterflies. So always have that in mind when you're drawing. If you're using very organic shapes, you want to also make organic elements to complement it so that it's all very curvy and flowy. I wanted to show you my ugly sketches because this is how I sketch. My sketches don't show up super pretty like some people's, and don't worry about that. This is just to get the ideas in the paper and start working. So what I do with that sketch layer is I turn down the opacity, and then I'm going to create a layer underneath. And again, this is not teaching you how to paint. This is just walking you through my process. I do have 2 classes, and they are creating patterns in Photoshop. So that's taking elements that you have drawn here in Procreate or that you have painted in watercolors and scanned, and how to assemble a pattern in Photoshop. That goes into super detail about every step of the process. And I also have a class that's creating half drop repeating patterns in Procreate. So if you don't have Photoshop or you want to create your patterns here in Procreate, then you know how to do that too. And that actually explains the process of drawing and everything. So if you want to learn that part, just go watch those classes. I'm going to take my color palette out, and I'm using this summer palette. I'm just going to create the basic shapes with any color. I'm not thinking about that at the moment. And for that, I'm going to go to the brushes and go to calligraphy and choose the monoline brush. And that's going to create smooth lines. Make sure those shapes are closed and just dropped in some color. I'm going to create 3 base layers for each butterfly. So the top wing, the bottom wing, and the body. Here, if you go to Canvas, you can see Canvas information. You can see how many layers you have available. For example, in this iPad, this is 12.9 inch 2020, I think, and I have a maximum of 47 layers. So I think that would be enough to create each butterfly on its own group. But if you don't have too many layers, what you can do is make different shapes that are not touching each other in the same layer. And then when you take this to Photoshop, you can separate the layers. And I can show you how to do that too. So I'm just going to create all the top wings in one layer. And then I'm going to create another layer, drag that one underneath also. And I'm going to choose a different color. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the foliage. And you see here that I have different size butterflies. This one's going to be very big, and this one too. And then I have these smaller ones. You always want to create variation in scale. So you have bigger elements and smaller elements so that the patterns can flow better. So this I am going to group and create my butterfly group. And now I'm going to create some foliage. And if I have several shapes that I want to fill in, I can just drop in the color, press continue filling, and just tap inside those shapes. And that way the coloring process is much faster. Then if I want to draw, I just press on the brush and I can start drawing again. I'm creating very simple shapes, and I'm also creating different sizes here. So I'll have bigger elements and then smaller elements. Okay, so now that I have all the base elements, I'm just going to add some textures and shading and some details. So now I'm going to group these ones. And I'm going to turn alpha lock on for each one of them to do this. Here I'm selecting a cream as the background color. And now I have white selected, and I'm tapping on each layer and clicking fill layer to make each layer white so that we can then add color to each one. I'm going to be using my watercolor brush set. Remember that you can download these brushes for free when you join my newsletter, so make sure you do that because these are the brushes that I use for my commercial use, and they include commercial license. That means that you can sell or license the art that you create with them. And I usually use the Ultimate Fill Rough the most. I don't want to get super detailed, I just want to add some color variations and some interesting textures because I'm going to add some details after. And here when I'm choosing the colors, I'm thinking like how they will look together. So I don't want to make too many orange butterflies or too many yellow ones. I want it to be a variation of them. And in watercolors, for example, there's always changing hues. So that's why I like to mix at least two colors here. I'm thinking if the flowers in the foliage are going to be pink and yellow, so I'm going to have that in mind when coloring the butterflies also. I'm also taking into account to have some lighter elements and some darker elements so that the contrast also creates more interesting layouts. Right now, this one is standing out too much as being too pink. So if I painted this one pink also, it might be too much. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to add like some other color on top of here just to tone down that pink. Because I think it's clashing a lot. Like these ones seem to have no relationship to these ones. What you can do if that's happening is take some of these colors and add them to these. That way they seem like they all belong together. So I'm adding some of that brown here and I'm going to darken this a bit here. And I'm going to go and add some of that pink to these ones. Just a little bit, but they start feeling like they belong more. I think the problem is here. And I'm always assessing, is this working? Is it not? And I'm just correcting it as I go. And there's no formula against which you can assess. Like there's no right or wrong formula. It's all about your taste. And you're going to develop it as you work on this. It's something very personal. And it's something that can only be developed by painting and painting. Okay, I think that looks so much better. And now I'm going to do the bodies. And this is another chance here to incorporate some of that pink. I can either draw on that layer. For example, if I choose my Narendale pencil, and let's say I choose this color, I'm in the top leaves, I could draw on that layer, but I can also create a layer on top, create a clipping mask, and then I can draw in that layer, and then I can change my mind and come and change it or erase it, or I can play with the blending modes and the opacity. And I think that works great for this type of applications. So I'm just going to swipe with 3 fingers to clear that layer. I'm going to bring back my sketch and I'm going to start adding the details. I'm going to bring this back to normal and full opacity and start adding some details there. Try to adapt this to your style. If you're still learning, you can copy these and practice. Just don't claim it as your own because this is my copyright. But try to create different types of butterflies, come up with different types of markings, use a different color palette, place the butterflies in other positions. I chose butterflies because it's very easy. Like you don't have to follow any like set shape. You can come up with wings that don't exist, different shapes. You can experiment. You can make just circles or blobs. It's very easy to experiment with butterflies, so I think this is a great exercise. That's the cool thing about having it in different layers too. I can erase it and not affect the layer underneath. Great, I'm going to turn off my sketch and start seeing how this looks with different blending modes. I like that overlay a lot because it kind of changes color depending on what's underneath. Like here, it looks darker here and lighter here, so I like that. And now I'm going to do the one under the wings and just do the same thing, create a clipping mask. And I'm going to set it to overlay now. And turn on my sketch again. Select the brush, because if not, it doesn't paint. Okay, I'm done painting that, so now I'm going to turn off my sketch layer. And what I can do now is I can go back into the wings, and with my Ultimate Fill Rough brush, I can go darken some areas if I want. I can add some additional details. Just make this as detailed as you want. Same for the top leaves. Okay, my butterflies are done, and now I'm going to do exactly the same thing to the foliage. I'm adding a bit of the colors I used here to these two so that they all belong together. On these ones, I don't need to have another extra layer, so I'm just going to draw the details on those. Okay, so I have all my elements ready, and what I'm going to do this is I'm going to share this to my computer and start assembling a pattern in Photoshop. So I'm going to go here and share as a PSD, and I'm going to airdrop it to my computer. I'm using Sidecar to project my computer screen into my iPad, and this is how I work when I'm drawing in Photoshop. If your iPad is not capable of Sidecar, don't worry, you can just do this in Photoshop. So this is the file I sent from my iPad, and if you see here, it says RGB. So I'm going to go to File and create a new file, and I am going to do a 12 by 12 inch again, 300 pixels, and I'm going to use CMYK. And here in the profiles, I just use this one, which is like the basic one. If you want a specific color profile here, you would choose it. And I click create. And now what I do is I'm going to select all of these layers, except for my sketch. And I'm gonna duplicate the layers into that untitled document there. So see, the colors didn't change that much, and now I have it in CMYK. So if a client needs it in RGB, I can turn this into RGB and the colors won't change at all. So I have both the options. Okay, so I'm going to close this one and save the CMYK one. And I'm going to give it a number for my organization. So this one is going to be 721, and it's going to be butterflies in the garden. That's the folder. I will name the file also. And now we're getting very organized. So everything that I do with these icons is going to have the same numbers, 0721. So that if I license it or sell it, I know that I'm not having elements scattered somewhere else. And maybe I double sell them or double license them. And that would be very bad. So this way I know that even if I create 10 different patterns with these elements, they will have different names, but they will have the same number. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is just separate all these elements. So I'm going to select the lasso tool and start with the foliage. A good way to do this is to hide every other layer so you know what elements you're separating. So here, this is one, and I Command X, Command F for me. Paste in place. It might be different for you because I think I changed this custom keyboard shortcut. You will see that here in keyboard shortcuts, edit, paste special, and whatever is here in paste in place, that's what you would use. And what that does is that it pastes exactly in the same place that you cut it from, because if you just paste it normally, like Command V, it would paste it somewhere else. So I'm going to keep doing that. Select L for my lasso and just separate all the elements. And now when I have these two elements, for example, I'm going to select them both. And that's going to select this background too. So I'm going to hide that background and select these two elements and group them or make them a smart object. I like working with smart objects. If you go and watch the class on making patterns in Photoshop, you'll see the whole explanation about why smart objects are so great and how I create them and how I use them. So I'm just going to do the same thing to each icon. And now I'm going to do the butterflies. These are the bodies. And now I'm going to merge these two layers. And that way it will be easier to cut them. Now the bottom wings. And now I'm going to group them and duplicate the wings so it's the complete butterfly. I like that this one is closed, so I'm going to leave this one as is. And I'm going to convert it into a smart object and move it here. And now I'm going to select these two wings and duplicate them and mirror them. And then I'm going to rotate them a bit. And now I'm going to group all these things and make that a smart object. And I'm going to do the same for these three. So I'm going to move these down here, duplicate these, mirror them, rotate them a bit. Place them there. And then group them. Great, now I have my 5 butterflies here and my foliage. I'm going to save that and I am going to delete this group. So now I have all my elements here. And now I'm going to build my pattern. Again, the whole process will be in the class on building patterns. I'm just going to give you a fast walkthrough here and tell you what I'm thinking as I'm doing it. I'm going to turn on the pattern preview. And I had this background here. I'm going to select this color and go to this background and drop it in there. So I can delete this background layer. And this one is locked. So it's not going to move when I move my element. This is a 12 by 12 block, and you can see that my butterflies are very big. The good thing about the smart objects is that I can reduce them now, and if I ever wanted them to be this size again, I could make them that big again. If they're not smart objects and I reduce the size, when I go to make them this size again, they're going to pixelate. So if you're working with smart objects, you're going to be able to make them smaller and then take them back to the original size, and they're not going to be blurry. So I'm thinking that they're pretty big, and if I leave them this size, the repeat will be very obvious. So I'm going to bring all these here into the middle, select it all, and make it a bit smaller. And I'm just going to start moving the elements around and playing around to build my pattern, trying to make it flow properly. So for that, I am going to place the bigger icons first, so that then I'm just filling things in, but the pattern is flowing. I'm going to make all the butterflies face different directions. That means that this is non-directional and it can be used for fabric facing any side. This is very useful, especially for fabric, because when people are cutting, if it's only works in one direction, they're going to waste a lot of fabric. I'm going to move these leaves all here, put them here in a little bunch, so I can see what's happening with the butterflies, and I can keep moving them around. And when I have a layout that works, then I can start filling in the other gaps. Now, if I look at my pattern, I can see I still have some gaps. Like here, there's too much space, and here. So what I like to do there is to create some smaller elements. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to draw some elements there. So I'm just going to grab some of this yellow, for example, and I'm going to just choose any brush here and start drawing some flowers or any filling element you prefer. And I'm going to make that into a smart object too, and duplicate it and place it in other parts of the pattern. And now I'm going to create some other fillers. Just with a hard round brush, I'm going to add some little dots. I just love patterns that are full, and I love adding little dots. You can also draw any other element you prefer. You could make different shapes like that. Whatever's your style. Okay, I really like how that looks, so my pattern is done. So this is how I do it. This is how I work for clients. I hope you enjoyed this process. I hope you look forward to seeing me solve other briefs monthly. Remember to check out my classes if you want to learn all the technicalities of pattern design and using Procreate or Photoshop for that. And if you create some artwork with this, tag me on Instagram at Art by Sandra Mejia. I can't wait to see what you create. Remember to subscribe and follow this channel and share it with your friends. Bye!